And welcome back. It is Race Week once again for what is going to be a absolutely fantastic, let's hope, triple header as we're going to be starting with the USA Grand Prix. So coming up, we're looking at that controversial rule set for 2026 to slow down Red Bull. Andretti have been guaranteed a new engine. Haas to run a new livery for their home race, and news on that BRAWN Grand Prix documentary. I know, I'd almost forgotten about it. It was kind of in the back of my mind, but news, and they have a release date. But first is Hamilton. Yes, why Hamilton? Well, this is in relation to that new rule set. Good old Lewis is going to be really, really happy because the FIA have pretty much potentially done a copy and paste of what he said earlier when everyone was kind of laughing at him. So Lewis Hamilton's dream, it says on planetf1.com, is for the FIA to impose a start date on F1 car development, and that may be about to come true. This start date proposal, if you remember a while back, Hamilton, he was mocked as a sore loser at the Austrian Grand Prix, and he suggested that the governing body should impose a strict start date on the development of the following year's car, and this, he cited, is going to stop dominant teams like Red Bull and even Mercedes back in 2014 from dominating the sport, dominating their position for potentially years to come. And that idea provoked a sarcastic response from a certain Max Verstappen, who pointed out the 7-time world champion didn't think like that during his years of dominance with Mercedes. So it now appears that Hamilton could potentially get that wish. Limitations are set to be imposed on car development ahead of those 2026 regulations. Now, according to the German publication Automotor und Sport, over recent weeks, F1 technical directors, they've discussed this idea of proposing a rule to prevent the start of wind tunnel and CFD development work for the 2026 cars. Now, January 2025, yes, before January 2025, so in order to prevent teams getting ahead. So, for example, Red Bull have built a fantastic car, haven't they? They'll probably build a fantastic car for 2024. And they could turn around potentially if they have that level of dominance and say, we're going to start really, really super early on that 2026 car and once again get a major, major step forward, at least potentially. So the reports claims the majority is in favour of this measure, which is to be confirmed at the next meeting before it's kind of like officially passed. A process described as a formality, it says. So preparations for the 26 rules are set to take place under the cost cap. Teams will be forced to manage their resources again, just like they are at the moment. Now, Sauber boss Andreas Seidel, for instance, he's admitted that there will be little development for their 2025 cars once they hit the track, because attention is going to turn to, well, for Seidel, it's going to return for the arrival of the Audi Formula One team. So it's going to be quite interesting. So what you might have 2024 next year could be really, really important for all the teams to get it right, because very similar, I think, to 2021 going into 2022, a lot of the cars were just, let's say, evolutions, not revolutions of the car before, and that's going to be really, really important going into 2026, because they don't want to waste all their resources on the 25 car, knowing that they want to get a leg up. No one wants a massive disadvantage going into that 2026 season, essentially. So, moving on from that, we obviously had that story about Andretti a while back, if you want to have a look at it, the 11th F1 team and the controversies they're potentially facing. But some good news is from motorsport.com. Jonathan Noble is reporting that Andretti will not be left without an F1 engine supply. FIA President Mohammed Ben Salim says Andretti is, well, they're going to have an engine deal if it gains Formula 1 entry. This is despite uncertainty about its current plans. There's Michael Andretti. Come on, Michael, be that 11th team. So they've been given approval, as we all know by now, or most of us know by now, to the FIA to join the grid in 2025 at the absolute earliest. But this is subject to that commercial agreement, that controversy where potentially Liberty Media, potentially a lot of the F1 teams do not want Andretti. So that is far from guaranteed. But they plan to bring the Cadillac name into Formula 1. The timeframe makes it unlikely that it's going to have its own power unit for several years. So it's going to have to get one, for example. So the American squad, they need that customer deal in place to make it to Formula 1. This was originally to be expected to be Renault. But it emerged last week that the pre-contract the team had with the French manufacturer has now lapsed and talks has not resumed, which is interesting, really. Renault, I mean, USA is obviously a very good market for them. They are the only team to have Alpine now, are the only team to have an Alpine/Renault engine. They could pretty much do with an ally. And not only that, how many times have we seen, for example, the Sauber and Haas and potentially Haas teams, when it comes to votes, for example, sometimes, but not always, the engine manufacturers will vote together. As I said, not always, but it has happened a lot in the past. Renault certainly need allies. So the situation means for now that Andretti, it does not have a firm engine contract in place, but F1's current sporting regulations are designed to ensure that no team is left without a power supply, although there's some debate whether or not a new entry is afforded this same privilege. Surely it absolutely is, but Ben Salim says it's clear that Andretti would qualify for a supply for 25 and 26. As he said, the long-term aim was for General Motors to produce its own power unit, and that's only good for Formula One, one of the biggest car companies producing their own power unit in Formula One. Ford are doing it with Red Bull, so maybe General Motors will only be a few years behind that. He said, Ben did, "We are demanding that we will see that." Ben told selected media, including motorsport.com, about the potential for an engine from General Motors, but engines are not built in 4 or 5 years. He said at the beginning, Andretti will agree to have one of 2 engines. He believes, and this is Appendix 6 of the, yes, we're back to those sporting regulations. Appendix 6 of the sporting regulations are going to apply to Andretti and giving it the option of requesting a supply from one of the manufacturers that is supplying the fewest customer teams. Who is that? Alpine, as we just said. But this is expected to be Honda and Alpine, because when you think about it, Honda in 2026 will be going to the Aston Martin team, and I imagine they won't be also going powering the AlphaTauri team or whatever their name's going to be in 2026. So yeah, they're right. It's an Alpine and obviously Honda. So while Audi will only be delivering products for its own works team, clauses in the rules means new engine suppliers are initially exempt from having to supply customers. So that could also mean Red Bull's Ford engine. Now, Ben Salem said there was no doubt in his mind that the rules were explicit in ensuring a supply for Andretti. He said it worked with the rules. Nobody can say no to them. If all the teams say no, then the FIA had the power to go on and say at least 2 engine manufacturers are being used, then we draw them and take one. It's not a secret, and I'm sure it's either Alpine or Honda, and one of them would win because that's the rules. Now, for Andretti to secure this customer supply, it would need to put in a request before the 1st of June of the year prior to its entry. So, if they are entering, I think it's a big if for 2025, because things are not as going as fast, let's say, as people seem. It's going to be. It's going to be the 1st of June next year. But Ben Salem's view is that there are some within F1 who are not convinced that the regulations are framed in such a way to guarantee a supply to new teams. I say poppy wash, or whatever that is. Moving on, Haas, new livery. So, Haas, as we know, this is from racefans.net, are going to run a special livery at their home race in reaction to, well, it says here, in reaction to Andretti's F1 bid. This is from Keith Collentine on racefans.net. So, 2 Formula 1 teams will use special liveries at the United States Grand Prix. Now, Haas, as we know, American team. The F1's currently only American team. They'll add the stripes, the stars and stripes to the flanks of their VF23 for the round of the Circuit of Americas. The team has also announced it will have a special tagline for this week. It has chosen "We the People," the opening phrase of the United States Constitution. Now, Gunther Steiner said they chose to emphasise their American background following FIA's decision to approve the bid for that USA-based team Andretti. He said, "One thing that is different is our look and feel is encapsulated under the tagline, 'We the People,' the first line of the American Constitution," Steiner said. He went on to say there's obviously a lot of talk about the American teams right now, but we're still currently the only American team. Many have said for years we haven't exploited that fact, but I've always said that's because we want to earn credibility within the paddock first, he explained. We've been through a lot in our short time, but along the way we've amassed a very loyal, growing fan base, and we want to recognise them. Now, Steiner said the livery was some nice marketing, but anyone who worked with my team knows how passionate they are and how genuine, funny and genuine our fans are. Our race is dedicated to them. Now, the other team running a special livery is the Red Bull. The world champions previously announced that we use design produced by fans at each of the 3 rounds to take place in the USA. This week's race in Texas is the second following the Miami Grand Prix in May. And if you want a closer look, there it is. Here's an even bigger picture. That almost looks like a screenshot from F1 2023. But I think it looks pretty awesome with the big Haas American stripes, with the American stars and stripes and We the People. Brilliant. Fantastic. I'm actually looking forward to seeing that in actual race trim. It should be quite good. So, our last story, but not least, is on WTF1. It's not about the British Grand Prix, albeit glamping. It's apparently their countdown. The actual story is, as you can see here, we have a release date for the BRAWN Grand Prix documentary, and we can't wait, is WTF1. And to be fair, I'm absolutely with them. So, it's an expensive time for F1 in the media, with many of its stories getting more airtime than ever. Don't we know it? And now we finally have that release date for Disney's next big splash within the sport, BRAWN, the Impossible Formula 1 story. Now, it says this is going to be a 4-part documentary series, and it's going to debut on the Disney's Plus streaming platform and promises previously unseen footage from the F1 archives. So for those who don't know, it says the series will focus on the rise of BRAWN Grand Prix. They pulled off a pretty much, well, they say unthinkable, let's say a miracle really, I think, when you look at it, when former F1 team principal Ross Brawn bought the remains of the Honda team in 2008 going to 2009 for just £1. The Japanese manufacturer basically pulled out of the sport because of that global financial crisis. Now it's why the cars have become one of the most recognisable liveries in modern F1 due to complete lack of sponsors, pretty much. I think they had a Virgin logo on and a couple, but there we go. Now, not to give too much away, but safe to say the 09 car that Honda developed with this now infamous double diffuser setup, and that was the thing that made it so fast. It was surprisingly fast for everyone, and the show promises interviews with Sky Sports pundit Jenson Button, who, as we know, didn't have too bad a season, and his teammate Barrichello. Also, Ross Brawn himself and the technical director at the time, Nick Fry, and it's narrated by someone that, by basically John Wick or Neo, or, the guy from Bill and Ted. Yes, Keanu Reeves. Or Point Break. What a film. But its release date is November the 5th, 2023. We can't wait, and we will be reviewing it. We'll be talking about it here on the Hot Lap when that releases. I'm really looking forward to that. So, the USA Grand Prix. This week, we will obviously be having all the news. It's going to be a sprint race. So we'll have the qualifying on the Friday, the sprint day on the Saturday, and the race on the Sunday. It's quite late, but I will endeavour to get the race review, qualifying review, and sprint review the minute I can basically sit down and record. So yeah, bear with us, but we will be there. We'll also be doing our preview, and coming up will be our 3 things to look out for the USA Grand Prix. But this is the Hot Lap. Thank you. You guys have been subscribing. You guys have been liking. It's been fantastic. I have had a big smile on my face. Thank you for all the comments. If I haven't got to you, I really, really will. I just really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. It does. Just watching it, getting to the end, you're an F1 champion in my eyes. But just watching it is enough. Like and subscribe. Absolute bonus. Comment. Oh, amazing. Anyway, I'll calm down now. See you guys next time. Thank you very much.